Well, good morning all, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. It is Tuesday the 5th of May and I'm back down in very sunny Herefordshire for the upcoming Brightwells sale. Yes, another auction preview video, and well, we've got some real treats in store for this one. Loads of pre-war cars, quite a few post-war gems as well, and some later modern classics just for a bit of added variety. But I think we will start with the older cars and this particular row here because there is a lot to get through and I'm conscious that these videos can take quite a long time. Obviously this is just an introduction to the cars that are coming up for auction imminently. All the details, more information, videos, etc. you will find over on brightwells.com. Don't take my word for anything, and I recommend viewing. There are viewing days coming up very soon. But let's start with the cars and see what gems we've got entered into the May 2026 Brightwells auction. If you hear a bit of background noise, well, there is some car cleaning going on just over the way over the other side, hence me starting over this way. And what better place to start than this glorious vintage Morgan. This one, there's little beauty, the three-wheeler dates to 1929. It's a Morgan Super Aero. The estimate on this is about 25 to 30. What an incredible little car this is. Friends of ours locally, they're big into their Morgans, and Harley did a video all about their three-wheel Morgans just a little while ago, and yep, they look to be a real blast to drive. Yeah, the big V-twin engine hung out the front there, Morgan Aero. So many different variations of the three-wheel Morgan theme were offered over the years, and this is definitely one of the more sporting variations. GU 1629, presumably the original registration of this car presumably was had since 1929. What a great thing. That does look like a bit of a hoot, I must admit. Three-wheelers, two at the front, one at the back. There's the hoot of the proper klaxon mounted on the outside of the body there. And, well, plenty of controls to keep you occupied there. Another car, the car that Harley did a video of had hand throttle as well. So maybe that's the case with this one as well, I'm not quite sure, but that must be a real blast to drive. Very dainty little rear view mirror on there as well, the V windscreen, and yeah, it looks to be a pretty tasty little car. Well, like I say, there's no substitute for actually viewing these things in person yourself. But yeah, that seems to be a lot of fun. Like I say, 25 to 30 is the estimate on that little beauty, and well, you could have an awful lot of fun with that. Right, slightly more modest now, we go across to this lineup of cars here headed by a very bonny little Austin 7 YD3240 is the presumably the original registration number on that one. This a little Austin 7 Chummy from 1931. Super bonny little car, this one. Quite a late example of a Chummy. These first came out in 1922. Didn't change a huge amount, but obviously the body's tweaked a little bit here and there, but basically the running gear is that of the very first Austin 7s. You see transverse leaf front suspension there, all pretty simple. This one looks like it's been converted to hydraulic brakes, so a few little mods on this one. Was that standard on Austin 7s of this era? Answers in the comments please. Yeah, looks to be very bonny little car. Look at the little temperature gauge there on the top of the radiator. The Austin 7 Club Hereford. Like I say, we're down in Herefordshire today. I say we, I keep saying we, but I'm flying solo today. Very bonny little car. Rudimentary soft top, that's all you need really to keep the worst of the weather off. But lots and lots of fun guaranteed with this one. Great spares support as well for Austin 7, so if you're thinking of dipping your toe in the vintage car world, you could do a lot worse than one of these little beauties. That really is a lovely little car. The estimate 6 to 8, so yeah, definitely one worthy of consideration if you're thinking of getting into the pre-war car world, the vintage car world in particular. Yeah, what a bonny little car. Let's just have a quick look round the back and just admire the shape of it, the bodywork. Yeah, very tasty little car indeed. A few extra gauges as well. Yeah, what a super duper little car. But this isn't the only pre-war Austin here today, because alongside it a little bit later we have this Austin 10 Litchfield. This one dates to about 36 if I remember rightly. and it's a really nicely presented little car, this one. This was the replacement for the Chrome Rad Austin 10-4s, which came out in 1932. In fact, we've got the Austin 10 Drivers Club badge on the front there, an organisation still very much around and very useful to be a member of, especially when it comes to sort of sourcing parts and advice to keep these little old girls on the road. Slightly bigger than an Austin 7, and in many ways a little bit more usable, perhaps just a bit bigger, slightly larger engine. Not quite got the following, I suppose, of the Austin 7s, but that keeps prices pretty reasonable. The estimate on this one is 4 to 5. So while you probably wouldn't get into VSCC events with it, Vintage Sports Car Club events, whereas you would with the Austin 7 Chummy, this would be a very nice pre-war choice. Like I say, not vintage, but just pre-war. In that sort of gap, that decade or so between the end of the proper vintage era, which was 1930, and the outbreak of the war. It's a kind of an era that does tend to get a little bit overlooked sometime, but that is a mistake to do so, I think. Let's have a quick look in here. So there's Litchfield, 1936, painted radiator cowl on these, otherwise very similar to the previous 10-4. It looks to be really lovely inside, actually. Look at that. The West of England cloth headlining, all beautiful in there. I'm not sure if the seats have been retrimmed at some point, maybe in the dim and distant past, but they've sort of mellowed down a bit if they have been retrimmed, but they could even be original, I'm not quite sure. But either way, it really is actually beautifully presented, for a fairly modest outlay. I mean, a few £1,000s is a chunk of money still, but you are getting a lovely little car if you decided to go for this one. Looks like quite an early registration number on it as well, CAF 499. These little lamps would have been added on in the 1950s, because originally when these came out they would have just had the single stop tail lamp that you see there, the pork pie lamp so called. But in the 50s it was deemed that cars had to have two stop tail lamps, and it was applied retrospectively. So even cars that had been around for decades had to be retrospectively fitted with twin rear lights to supplement or replace the single lamp that had originally been the sole equipment. So there we go. Right, but yeah, well, that's a lovely little car. I could be very tempted with something like this, just as a little potter rounder. £4,000, for maybe £5,000, that's the sort of estimate that we're looking at on this one. And on the face of it, obviously I've not been underneath it, I've not had it running or anything like that, but the signs are, doesn't that shut nicely? Let's try the back door. No drop, anything like that. Lovely Bakelite fittings there, but yeah, isn't that just a really bonny little car? I've always advocated Austin 10s as just being a really good choice if you want a fairly small car to accommodate up to 4 people, just for a pot around. Even the chrome is lovely on it. It's actually, I mean, I had a quick look at the photos on the website before I came out this morning, but this is actually a lot nicer than I thought it might be. Slightly dusty, just wants a bit of a polish up, but that really is. Just look around the wings. Let's have a quick feel around the wings, see if there's any. There's no patched in bits, at least on this one. Very clean under there as well. But this could be a bit of a Billy bargain. You've got the original rubber covers on the running boards as well, with the Austin logo proudly emblazoned upon it. But yeah, a super little car that is. I really do like that a lot. Okay, so we move on from a pair of Longbridge's finest to a car from the 1920s. This is a Clyno from 1926, a 4-seat tourer, not a manufacturer you hear about all that often now. It would be 1926, i.e. pre-1930, proper vintage car, and you would be eligible for all sorts of vintage sports car club events, road runs and such like, if you decided to take this one on. It's a lovely looking car. The estimate's about 8 to 10. Quite hefty front brakes on it as well, because some of the cars from 1920s don't have brakes on the front. It's always quite reassuring if you see some brake drums on the front, just for a bit of added retardation. Not that you would be breaking any speed limits anytime soon, really, Beautiful plated, nickel plated lamps on it. The radiator surround, the Clyno enamel badge there. Let's have a quick look round here. So we've got the spare wheel on the side. So these are so-called artillery type wheels. Some cars of the era still had wire wheels, as we can see on the little Austin 10 here. These big, heavy, solid metal wheels, these are called artilleries. Spare wheel mounted on the passenger running board. Very dainty little door handles as well, like that kind of detail. Look at that, supplied by the Express Garage in Taunton. I wonder if they sold it new or maybe second hand at some point in its life. Good little dash, nice Smith's clock there. All the bits and bobs you need, not too complicated. Nice manual horn there, just poking through the top of the scuttle. Trim looks to be pretty nice to me. Note, the gear lever and handbrake are down the right hand side next to the driver's right knee. As a result, you've got a door on this side plus a door behind it. But if we go round to the side, again this one has been supplemented by some extra lights at some point in the past, but if we go around this side, no doors at all, so you were expected to clamber in from the other side, which was the curb side, so I think that was probably deemed to be the safer side anyway. Yeah. So yeah, no doors at all on that side. We've got an Esso 2-gallon petrol can though, that's nice. I'm assuming a battery or something hides within this box here on the running board. And we've got the C embossed into the map pocket there, just on the door. Not on the back, but certainly on the front. That's a nice little touch. But yeah, what a great view down the bonnet. And just such a characterful car. And cars like this, they offer so much value for money at the moment. It really is a bonny little car, that is. Rightio, we continue our foray into pre-war cars, and we have a pair of vintage, well I say vintage, just about post-vintage Rileys here. The first one, the black car, this one dates to 1935. This is a Riley 9 Merlin. The estimate on this is about 6 to 8. And we'll have a closer look. CKM, that looks like the original registration, and I love the old plates, because the 4s sometimes, yeah, they've just got this nice little bit that flares out at the bottom on the digits, so proper original plates there, which is always nice to see. Actually, it's a handsome looking car, this one. Lovely quality lamps on it as well. So 9 is for 9 horsepower, which was the taxation formula really. It was a formula originally dreamt up by the RAC, the Royal Automobile Club, and it ended up being used as a calculation for road fund licence charges or road tax. This being calculated at 9 horsepower. They're very sleek cars. Riley really did do some lovely looking saloons in the 20s and 1930s. Like I say, this one dates to 1935. Rear hinged front doors, conventionally hinged rear doors, both doors hinging off the centre pillar, so you always want to have a good look to make sure that the B pillar here is nice and structurally sound, because there's a fair bit of weight hanging off it, i.e. both doors hinged off that one pillar. So let's have a quick look in here. No drop on the door, no play at all. Yeah. Oof. Looks like the front seats have been retrimmed, the rear looks to be original, I think. It's got a lovely oldie worldy smell in here, and as befits a sporting car, because that's what Rileys always were, slightly erring towards the sporting side of motoring. A very well equipped dashboard. You've got a little winder there to open the windscreen, various controls in the centre of the steering wheel. Got a big slide open sunroof, twin wipers. The all-important door test. Perfect. Let's keep going around here. But yeah, like I say, very stylish cars. Rileys of this era. I keep being drawn to adverts for old Rileys because there's certainly a lot that is very nice about them. Again, it's had the 50s updates, but these proper stop tail lights added to the rear wings to supplement this tiny little lamp, which was all it would have had originally. We've got a nice old AAGB plate on the back as well. Let's just have a look around this side, the driver's side. This is the door that will have the most use, of course. That opens and shuts really nicely as well, actually. Original trim. Like I said, the front seats have been recovered. Everything else is pretty much as it left the factory. Pre-select the gearbox. Conventional pedals down there, the one on the left where you'd normally have a clutch. Literally is just sort of the gear applicator. So leading into a corner, say, you pick your gear of choice to go around the corner, so you may change down the gear. You select it on here, but that doesn't change the gear until you give the left-hand pedal just a little prod down there. So quite a neat little system. Riley used pre-selected boxes on a lot of their cars, as did Daimler, Armstrong-Siddeley, and no doubt quite a few others. That shuts really, really well. So this is a 1935 Riley 9 Merlin estimate. So I think it's about 6 to 8, somewhere in that ballpark. So again, quite a lot of car. A very, very stylish car, I think, for not crazy amounts of money. Certainly if you compare it to like 80s Fords and things, they go for big, big bucks. And for a fraction of that, you could get a properly characterful, really old car. And they are surprisingly usable. A lot of people do quite big mileages in these cars. Just because they're old doesn't mean they can't get around and cover the ground. Right, and we stay with Riley. We go slightly older. This is a 1932. It's a Riley 9 again. So both 9 horsepower rated cars based on their engine sizes, which are just over 1000 cc, give or take. But this is the Riley 9 Monaco, and this is a very popular choice in VSCC events, even though it's slightly later than the VSCC's vintage cut-off of 1930. They do allow certain post-vintage cars to take part in their events, and that's the case with some of the Austin 7s, like the Trummy we were looking at just a moment ago. That was a 31. This Riley 9 Monaco is 1932, but yeah, and you can see how the styling is just that little bit older, slightly more upright. And you go just a few years later, a bit curvier, the wings a lot curvier, curve a lot further down in front of the wheels, where these you see a lot more of the front wheels. So much earlier styling, even though there's not many years between them. NJ935, presumably that's the original registration number. And just very, very stylish, very, very upright radiator on this era of Monaco. Monacos were produced over quite a few years, and they did change a lot in detail. You know, you look at photographs, old period photographs of Riley 9s, and it's amazing how much they did alter in detail over the years. But this one looks super duper original inside. So I don't know what the running status is, what history comes with any of these cars. So again, just have a quick shufty at the Brightwells website if there's anything that you really want to find out about, or give them a shout in the office, they're always around. But yeah, pretty bonny, pretty neat little Riley 9 Monaco. Okay, we carry on, and we have an open top pre-war car, and actually one that is particularly rare. This is a Humber 12 from 1934, and that is definitely a pretty unusual car. I don't think I've ever seen one of these before. Again, you can see the sort of the later styling of these cars with the much curvier wings compared to the wings that were around typically on new cars just a year or two before. But yeah, Humber, very unusual sight this is. The Humber 12, open top motoring here. We've even got a little Spitfire that's been attached to the top of the radiator cap. And there we go, there's the proud Humber badge, real quality car manufacturer from back in the day. It's actually a really stylish little car. I wasn't quite sure how big this will be when I was looking at the photographs of it. But it's actually not huge. It looks big kind of in photographs, but when you actually see it in the metal, it is not massive. So there's another seat behind there under the tonneau cover. I think we've got side screens in this bag here. They would clip in there, and also side screens to go in there. But yeah, interesting car. I don't know if this is a runner or not. We've got a key in the ignition over there. It all looks to be here, from what I can see here anyway. Trim looks to be in pretty good order. Nicely trimmed doors there. So we've got an extension on the gear lever, so there's like a bit of a home mod there, I suspect. Yeah, interesting car. Two tones. We've got cream upper, green on the lower panels. Someone's fitted later backlights. They look like trailer lights, so the back end view of this would be improved immeasurably. Lose those lights, put some nice proper oldie worldy lights on it, and that would transform the rear view of it. So a few little jobs I suspect want doing on this one. Like I say, I'm not sure if it's a runner, but it's got the makings of a really nice car actually. I like these little styling flashes on the top of the door there. That's a really nice little detail. Twin wipers, the wiper motor right in front of the passenger. Fairly simple dash in these, but yeah, nice. Interesting alternative perhaps to, say, a Morris or an Austin, that kind of thing. Quite big, hefty lamps on the front. They would polish up a treat, I am sure. Like I say, there'll be a full write-up on this car and all the others on the auction website itself. Yeah, interesting to see that one. The estimate's about 5 to 7, somewhere in that ballpark. And we stay with the mid-1930s, and we've got a little Morris 8 Tourer. Little Series 1 4-seat Tourer. Super popular little cars, well supported by the Morris Register. So you needn't worry too much. The Morris Register and the Morris Spares scheme. Lots and lots of parts are available for these to keep them running. That engine did Morris very well indeed. It was used in lots and lots of cars, the little 918cc side valve unit. Even in the post-war years, that engine was still in production, basically the same engine. This one's had, looks like a seal beam headlamp conversion at some point in time, probably in the 1950s. Yep, the Morris 8, the 8 horsepower Morris. The Morris 8s were produced for quite a few years, throughout the 1930s, and indeed as the Series E after the Second World War. But yeah, fairly spacious, probably a little bit more room in it compared to the Austin 7 Chummy. Even a reasonable amount of room in the back for people sat there. So yeah, interesting little car. Looks to be pretty nice in red with the black mudguards. Yeah, very, very bonny little car. So you've got quite the choice here if you fancy something early. And the auction kicks off, like I say, today is Tuesday the 5th of May 2026. The auction itself and registration and stuff, that kicks off this coming Saturday, and it's an online auction that runs from Saturday all the way through till the following Wednesday. So it gives you a bit of time to get down there and have a look if you so wish. Right, you've even got seatbelts in here. By gum, all the modern conveniences. Yeah, neat little car. Right, we carry on along here, and we've got a magnificent vintage Bean. I've got a feeling we've seen this one before, but it's quite an unusual car. Very, very rare car, the Bean. You don't see these too often. Occasionally at a VSCC event you might see a Bean pop up, but yeah, quite an unusual car. Again, lovely lamps, huge front brakes on it as well. So that would make probably for a very usable car, I would have thought. Let's have a quick peer under the bonnet, as the bonnet is on the... It's already open anyway, so let's have a quick look under here, the centre hinged bonnet. So quite a chunky 4-cylinder side valve unit under there. We've got the Autovac unit here. Autovac, they were based over in Stockport. So it draws, this is like a holding tank for the petrol, so vacuum pressure on the inlet manifold, that draws the fuel up from the tank via this pipe here into this holding tank. And then you've got a gravity feed down into the carburettor itself, which is tucked away down there just below the Autovac unit. There's the drive for the ignition. All fairly easy to get at. There's a steering box down there. I don't know what the situation is with whether this one runs. It'd be quite good fun to get it running again. So let's just pop that down again, and then we'll continue our look around. Yeah, it's quite a bonny little car. This one dates to 1925. It's a 14 horsepower Tourer. I would imagine the estimate on this one is somewhere in the 7, 8, that sort of, maybe 9, that kind of ballpark I would have thought. A lovely, well-equipped dash. Again, beautifully nickel-plated instrument surrounds there. So it's a really stylish, very classy car indeed. And I love the wooden frame for the folding roof. That's really nice. Beautifully upholstered as well. How comfortable and inviting does that look? I would happily spend a bit of time sat in the back of that, or indeed sat in the front of it driving it. Quite a big fuel tank hung out the back. There is the fuel gauge. I'm not sure how legible that is. Looks like an older restoration to me. Would you repaint it? Would you keep it looking the same? Let me know. Answers on a postcard, please. But yeah, lovely, lovely looking car. Now we move along because we have another make of car which we have seen already. This little Morris, of course, the little Morris 8 Tourer, which the estimate was about 7.5 on that one. And here is its much, much larger brother. This one dates to about 1931, I think. This is the Morris Oxford. This is quite an unusual sight now. You see little Morris 8s and Morris 10s around a fair bit, but these big old Morris Oxfords, the flat radiator Morris Oxford, the earlier cars with the bull noses, yeah, this is quite an unusual sight. The estimate on this is about 8.5, and for that you get quite a big, lofty, just post-vintage saloon, 1931, like I say, and yeah, really beautifully turned out. I love how it's even got Morris Oxford in the top of the headlamp there. That's a nice detail. I've not ever noticed that on one of these before, but it's pretty unusual to come across one of these full stop. There we go, Morris Oxford, built down that neck of the woods, of course, at Cowley. Big hefty bumper on the front, got an RAC badge. So let's just have a look around. So spare wheel mounted on the passenger side. Lovely side lights there. Big spoked wheels with the M proudly emblazoned in the centre of the wheel. Got a slightly later mirror there, just attached. That's quite a common thing actually, to attach a mirror to the top of the spare wheel when it's mounted on the side like that. A big 4-door, 4-stroke 5-seat saloon. Let's just have a quick look inside. I love these little door handles. Look at those, aren't they nice? What a magnificent bit of woodwork just for the dashboard. Look at that. Made in the woodwork shops down at Cowley, no doubt. Isn't that incredible? Feels like you're in a gentleman's club, being surrounded by all this leather and all these wood appointments. Looks like the headlining been replaced. Very nice job too. Yeah, I bet this rolls along very, very happily indeed. I bet it really does. We've got an old tax disc holder in here. There's a bit of a fan of this kind of thing. 2015 was the last year for printed tax discs. Look at that, it's a proper Morris Motors tax disc holder. I've never seen one of those before. So I'll just hide that under there, put that under there. But yeah, lovely dash. I like the finish on the dash panel itself, and the woodwork. That really is a treat. That really is lovely. Look at all this, beautifully made. Yeah, this could just be a flat piece of wood, be a lot cheaper and quicker to make, but no, they actually went the extra mile, door shuts well, to create what is a beautifully appointed interior. And this is a sort of detail and the quality you just don't get on cars, say in the 1960s or later, and that is what draws me to these wonderful pre-war cars. And at the moment they are a bit of a bargain because, you know, you can get an awful lot of pre-war car for your money nowadays. Look at the amount of footroom there is in the back there. Yes, they might need a bit of investment in terms of just getting your head around driving them, but that's part of the fun, part of the challenge, you know. Worthwhile things are rarely easy to pursue, but it wouldn't take too much work to get the hang of this one, I am sure. And you would have a lovely, lovely old saloon car, quite a rare one as well. to go for runs out in. Now, I'm not sure what size engine it is, but I'm going to guess 2 and a bit litres, somewhere in that ballpark. And that would, I'm sure that would actually roll along really, really well. Let's just have a quick look around the back. So it's got a bit of a D-back going on. So before cars had a hump for a boot area, the cars used to curve in like this, which I think is actually really, really stylish. I prefer cars that are that shape to ones with a little boot on the back. Of course, the downside is if you've got loads of luggage, well, you'd put it in a trunk on the back here, or you'd put it on the back seat with you in the car. But it is a huge car, so you've got plenty of room for it. And look at these super little quarter bumpers as well. That is really a very impressive, very imposing looking car. Of course, don't forget to let me know in the comments which car or cars you are most tempted with, and if you end up bidding on one of these cars and even winning it, do let me know, because it's always interesting to know what you think of the cars here and whether they really appeal to you enough to actually have a bid. Opening windscreen as well, just here. Windscreen wiper motor just above the screen itself. Yeah, beautiful, look at that. Even the steering wheel, because often these get chipped if people have lots of rings on the fingers, etc. But this really is in lovely condition. Seats, very nice too. Yeah, it's just all over a very, very agreeable place to be. And the door shuts very nicely too. Little pop-up semaphore indicators mounted here, just alongside the windscreen. What make? I can't quite see what make they are. But yeah, lovely, lovely looking car. Now, we are looking at Buick, but not Buick as in the American Buick. This is a Canadian built Buick, and regulars to the channel will know we've got one a bit like that. We've got a 1931 McLaughlin Buick, and this is also a McLaughlin Buick, somewhat older than ours. Ours is a 1931, but this one is a little bit older. This one is a 1925 McLaughlin Buick Standard 6 Tourer. Wow. And again, I've said it before, but especially American vintage cars, they really do offer so much money. The estimate on this is 10 to 12. And I mean, just look at the fittings, the beautiful glass, the frosted glass, the surrounds to the lamps, this gorgeous radiator surround, nickel plated McLaughlin Buick. So yeah, Canadian built, license built Buick basically. And this is right hand drive, cast number plate there. It's had little flashing indicators added at some point in time just for a little bit of added practicality, which isn't a bad idea. And the Boyce motor meter, big proud temperature gauge there on the top with the winged mascot. That's actually a really good looking car. I do like this era of Buick with this shape of radiator. I think they are a very, very handsome looking car. Big wooden wheels, brakes on the front as well as the back, so that's always good news, because our 24, we used to have a 1924 Dodge, and that just had braking on the back, which was adequate, that's good enough. But this has got the added security of brakes on all four wheels. So is it a two-seater? Is there a dicky seat? I'm not sure. There might be a dicky seat hiding away in there, or rumble seats. Yep, there is the step on the top of the rear fender. So 2+2 seating. And look at that, isn't it just beautiful? That is really, really impressive. £10,000 the estimate on this, and you're buying a serious chunk of quality. Isn't that wonderful? Advance and retard there. Look at that. The interior in this is even nicer than our own, and I thought ours was nice, but the fittings, this in particular, is a real treat. So you've got a folding roof tucked away under the cover there. Look at these amazing rear lights stuck out on stalks. The duo lamp. So all proper period fittings again. Love the old cast plate on the back as well. That really is. That's a good looking car. I like that. Oh, there's the other step. Didn't see that one. So you've got a little step there, so you can clamber on there, there, and in there will be some seating arrangements. What a magnificent thing. Just look at that. It's the sort of interior where even if you're not actually going out for a drive, you would just sit in it. Well, I would just sit in it just to admire everything. So there's a 6-cylinder engine hiding away under there, and the estimate is around 10ish, maybe a smidge more, plus the usual fees. I bet that would roll along really, really well indeed. So much temptation. Got quite the gaggle of Land Rovers here today, so we will have a look around those just a little bit later. But this is a very, very interesting car indeed, because at first glance from 50 yards away you might think, oh, we're looking at a bullnose Morris, and we kind of are, but we're kind of not as well. This dates to 1926, and rather than a Morris badge, you will see that we have a Morris badge and an MG badge. The MG Super Sports. This is the Super Sports 1428 of 1926, and only around 400 or so of these were made. And if you've ever wondered where MG came from, well, this is pretty much it. The genesis of MG, Morris Garages, of course, that's what MG stands for. And the very first MGs were pepped up, slightly hotted up versions of regular Morrises. And that is what we are looking at here with this incredible two-tone MG from 1926. Now that is a properly rare car. The estimate reflects that. The estimate is about 35 to 40, that kind of ballpark. But that is a very historic car indeed. Again, beautifully appointed to mid-1920s Morris. The bullnose radiator, which is pretty familiar to anyone with an interest in vintage British cars, but with a twist, the MG reference. We've got BARC, the British Automobile Racing Club badge, and VSCC badge down there. Proper cast aluminium number plate as well, MR7058, so presumably the original registration. We've got friction dampers on the front axle. And yeah, that really is quite the Bobby Dazzler, I must say. A very unusual windscreen arrangement with this sort of piece on the side here. Not often you see that. Got these little air intakes here as well, set into the top of the scuttle, very similar to those fitted on the little swallow-bodied Austin 7s actually. And let's have a quick look round here. Looks like we've got a spare cylinder head just in the boot there, in the rear area. Dashboard well set back. There we go, the MG Super Sports. So this is where MG began, of course. The MG badge is still alive, albeit nailed onto the back of a Chinese EV of all things. But if you want to look at a proper MG, well, here you go. It really is. And it's very low slung, that's what I'm struck by. Often when you look at bullnose Morrises, and in fact yesterday we were at Goresworth Hall, there was I think 2 or 3 bullnose Morrises there, and they look a little bit more upright. But this one, I'm looking down into it, so it's a very low, sleek body, quite a shallow door, just a door at the front on this side, on the curb side. We go around here, quite an elaborate springing arrangement at the back as well. Look at that, incredible exhaust tip there. Reminds me a bit of the old Brooklands races and the big blower Bentleys, because this was a sporting car, MG. And wow, yep, that's interesting. So you've got a rear door on this side, but no front door, and a front door on that side, but no rear door. I've never noticed that before on one of these, but saying that, I've probably only seen one of these before. Lovely, lovely car. Like I say, the estimate 35 to 40. So if you collect MGs, well, you haven't really got a collection unless you've got one of these tucked away in your garage. What a special car. What an incredible little car. I bet that's got some stories to tell. Right, we carry on along here, and we've still got quite a few old cars to go. And now we are in the mid-1950s. About 1955 is the date of this one. This is the Hillman Minx Californian. So this was a sort of sporty, slightly sleeker version of the contemporary Hillman Minx. So good old Roots Group. And well, this one is a 1955 car, and the estimate 3 to 4. Looks to be a pretty presentable car. I love the wraparound, very wraparound 3-piece rear screen arrangement. Really wraps around here, right next to the rear passenger's shoulders, in fact. So you get a really good view out of here. And you've got, I think this is a pillarless design as well. So the rear side windows, yep, they wind down, as do the front door glasses, and that will give you a very, very sleek looking car. So it's like a 50% scale American car of the 1950s, really, to look at. Pretty hefty hinges on the boot, and quite a big boot as well, actually. I think they are really neat looking little cars. I know Harley's less convinced by some of these cars, but I really like these. Very jolly interior trim as well. How could you not have your soul lifted by sitting in an interior that looks like that? Wonderful two-tone trim. Bench seating front and rear, column gear change, very natty looking dashboard as well. There's a period radio just in the centre there. I think the estimate on this one was about 3-ish to 4, somewhere in that ballpark. And for that you're getting a really distinctive little car. Quite roomy inside actually, so even though it's only a 2-door coupe, there's actually, looks like there's a fair bit of room in the back. NVS 357. A proud Hillman script on the front of the radiator there, and very few of these around now. There's the all-important Californian badge. Again, this was probably one of those sort of British attempts to produce a car that would appeal to the stateside market. That's how many of these actually left our shores, I'm not quite sure if it's from that era where sort of export or die, so maybe quite a lot of these did actually end up being exported. How many were sold here in the UK? Who knows? I can imagine they weren't the cheapest of cars, certainly compared even to the Minx that it was based upon. But it certainly is a very, very stylish car now, and if you took that to a classic car show, it's unlikely you'd bump into another one outside of a Roots Group gathering. Right. We will continue down here. We have another post-war gem, but with its roots very much in the pre-war era. This is a little standard 8 drop head coupe. And what a rare little car this is. So it's a post-war, it's about 1946, I think, this particular car. And it's based on the pre-war standard Flying 8. But for the cars produced after the Second World War, they dropped the flying bit and just called them the Standard 8. They also lost the vent down the side of the bonnet as well. That's how you can tell at a glance that this is a post-war 8 rather than a pre-war Flying 8. It's certainly a very, very eye-catching little car. Yeah, I think this one dates to 46. Lovely colour as well, very, very cheerful colour. You couldn't be miserable if you opened your garage door and saw that peering out. That's where the start handle goes through. This little rubber grommet thing just pings off, and they're often missing as well when you see these. The waterfall grille in good condition. And the proud standard flag there at the top. Standard, now you might think a car called standard is just sort of basic, plodding, but standard in those days, it meant setting the standard. So they were, yeah, they were a good quality little car, these were. This a 2-door drop head coupe. They also did a Tourer, slightly more basic Tourer version. But this one is just a little bit more nicely appointed with a proper lined folding roof. I remember dragging one of these out of a garage somewhere in East Anglia, I think it was, a few years ago now. I did actually wonder if it was this car. It wasn't this colour, it was like a grey colour. I thought maybe it had been restored and repainted, but it's not this one, but it was very similar to this one. And well, what a bonny little thing. And again, you ain't going to see too many of these around. Old style tax disc holder there as well. Bakelite dash set within the metal dashboard panel. Room for 4 people. And actually quite a stylish little car. I do quite like these. Estimate on this about 6-ish, somewhere around that neck of the woods. Of course you could get the little 8s and flying 8 saloons as well, which are way more common than these drop-head coupes. I can imagine these were quite a lot more expensive compared to the regular saloons on which they're based. Only a fairly little engine in it, sub 1 litre engine, side valve, 4-cylinder engine. Looks like the original registration number and plates. So that's good to see. So yeah, what a cheerful, bonny little car that is. Standard Motor Club, though, they can help you out with parts and advice on keeping this on the road. Pretty simple car, to be honest. And, it's been a while since I last saw one of these. Right, we carry on our quest. Now this is a seriously big sale. There's a lot of cars and indeed some memorabilia entered into this one. So I will focus on the older cars, but I'll try and show you a little bit of everything. So if anything piques your interest, you can head off to the website and just find out a bit more about it. Got an Opel Manta GTE here, one of the coupes. I'll just have a quick scoot along. Lots and lots of Land Rover action, Series 3 and later Defenders. Toyota Land Cruiser. Got a Mark II Vauxhall Astra GTE. So if you're after a hot hatch from Luton, then there you go, the little Astra, the Mark II Astra. More Land Cruiser action there. Focus RS. So I can't spend too long in this section of the sale because the video will be even longer than it already is. And as you regulars will know, got a Supra here. Regulars will know these videos can stretch on just a little bit. Really chunky little Series 3 pickup here. That's quite a neat little thing. Lots of checker plate. Tiny dinky little pickup. Yeah, it's a 110 I'm guessing over here. It's on a 66 registration. Bit of a project. Of course, any old car, to be honest. Every old car that features in this video is a project to a greater or lesser extent. I keep having to say this because sometimes you might think, oh, I'll buy an up and running car, classic car, vintage car, and then I'm good to go. But there's still projects, they still need looking after, still need running repairs and so on. We've got a lightweight here. Some ex-military jobs as well. This one looks to be quite a clean example. Series 2 or a 2A, it's a 64 example next to that glorious McLaughlin Buick. Right, we continue our stroll around. What else have we got down this part of the building? Past a super little Standard 8, Standard of Coventry. You can just see the badge there. What's this? 370Z. 525i, so 2.5 litre E39 era of 5 Series Beamer. Good cars. Auto box in that one. A magnificent Bentley. Look at that. Broughton's of Cheltenham, the supplying dealer, plates still on it. These are a lot of car for the money. I'm not sure what the estimate is on this, as I have seen these going for, 10, 12, 14, that sort of neck of the woods. Possibly not this exact model, but Arnages in general are becoming really quite available. So we've got many, many more cars over that away, but I think we'll go and get a bit of fresh air and head out this way and just see what gems we can spot out here. And on the way, well, it'd be rude not to have a closer look at this gaggle of micro cars. We've got a little Messerschmitt, the KR200. This one of the FMR license built examples of the Messerschmitt three-wheeler. And what a cool little thing that is. One or two of these at Goresworth Hall just yesterday. And it reminded me that I've never owned a three-wheeler, and I kind of think it's something that I should cross off the list at some point in time. Pretty groovy, and like the Morgan, 2 wheels at the front, 1 at the back. Occasionally you see cars where it's the other way around, but that could be quite exciting. And then we've got the body shell here. What's this? Is this a little scooter car, I suspect? Look over here, 4-wheel BMW. A bit different to the BMWs that you typically see on the roads now. That really is quite a stylish looking thing. I love how the bumper comes around here and the indicator is sort of incorporated into the upended ends of the bumper. Opening front door, so that's how the driver and the front passenger clamber aboard. I like these slightly older style BMW badges as well. So that's how you get in if you are in the front, and if you are in the back you go around here past the engine cover. Looks like it's had a number plate change at some point in its life, perhaps. Pretty groovy wraparound rear lights arrangements. Yep, so there we go. Door on just the one side for the rear seat occupants. But these four-wheel little BMWs are actually pretty unusual, I think. Look how beautifully trimmed it is in there. There's a spare wheel just sat behind you. Pretty basic motoring for four. What a cool thing. Frameless glass as well. I won't slam it, but yeah, pretty groovy. And alongside it, Sir Clive Sinclair's great idea for the 1980s, a little Sinclair C5. I'm not entirely sure if this one is entered into the next sale, or well, the upcoming sale, or a later sale, but we'll have to have a quick look, don't we? Slightly tired looking Silver Shadow 2. This one looks like it's fallen on slightly hard times. So it's got a VSCC badge in the window, so presumably the owner at one time was interested in their motor cars, but this one has been sat around quite a lot and is not looking any better for it. It's clearly had a few little repairs in the past. It's certainly looking a little tired now. What a shame. You see it's got the auxiliary handbrake arrangement. Let's have a quick look inside. Oof. The once magnificent interior. Yeah, she's looking a little past her best. Be nice to think that maybe someone would do something with that, but is it likely? Who knows. Right, let's carry on. What is this beauty alongside? We've got a Bedford CA van. Now, is this the CAS, the short wheelbase? It is indeed, yep, the CAS. So you had two wheelbases, CAL for long, CAS for short. And if you saw the video I did at Cheswardine, I think it was, a very bonny maroon example of one of these turned up there. This is quite a late one. It's a 66 registered, so this is the Mark III Bedford CA. So the very first CAs that came out in the early 1950s had sort of two-piece screen, a small screen, and a divider in the middle. Then, in a fit to modernise the design, they came up with the first of the one-piece windscreen CAs, the Mark II, which had a one-piece screen but a fair bit shallower than what you see here. And then this one with a big forehead, this is the Mark III. Like I say, 1966, so it's got a few years on this one. 60 years old, this van now. Slidey doors, of course, like most of the CAs had. Although the little CA pickups and the tippers, they had conventionally opening hinged doors. Pretty groovy little van. And wouldn't that just look great? Sign written up in with some proper old sign writing. Engine accessible down there between the driver and the passenger's feet. Column shift. How big are they? About 1500 something cc, somewhere in that neck of the woods. But yeah, what a great little thing. Little commercial vehicles, very, very thin on the ground, very sought after now for advertising and so on. Forward control Land Rover here on an X registration. Looks like we have Cummins diesel engine, if that's anything to go by. Perfect for a cross-continent expedition, perhaps. We've got all the implements tucked on the front here, just in case of dramas. So yeah, you could have a bit of fun with that one. Look at this, late 1970s Airstream motorhome. Cool, that's quite the thing, isn't it? Got a few gems from a previous sale just over there awaiting collection, but I believe this is entered into the next auction. Wowzers. That'll take up a bit of space on the drive, wouldn't it? A wonderful polished metal finish, just like the Airstream caravans. You'd certainly feel the bee's knees rocking up at a campsite in this. This is the sort of thing you often actually see in paddocks at sort of historic race meetings. Drivers, mechanics, etc. who are planning to camp over for the weekend, maybe for a race event or testing, practice, that kind of thing. You often see this sort of vehicle used in that environment, and that would be just perfect. You could put a big tow bar on the back of here, trailer, tow your race car to an event, and you could kip and have a brew, etc. In here it's got the big awning on the side as well. It's got the big pull down awning too. Looks like something that Boeing would have made, doesn't it? It really is quite the impressive thing. I'm not sure what I'd do with it, but I kind of see the appeal of something like that, sort of. Or just park it at the bottom of the garden. Maybe we could do an Airbnb with it. Who knows? So many options. Right, let's carry on. Because, a forward control Landy here, but there is also another one over here. Like I say, lots of Land Rovers. There's always loads of Land Rovers, to be honest, in Brightwells auctions. It's that sort of area. But yeah, you get all the details and the small fine print on their website. Yeah, quite a mixture of cars entered into the next auction. And this being the old classic car channel, well, the focus will always be on the slightly older cars, while trying to show you just a little bit of everything that is in here. We've got an MGTF XJ, one of the aluminium bodied cars. Escort Cabriolet, is that the Mark V, I think? It's quite breezy out here. Little MGF. I'm sure some of these cars will have no reserve, others will have reserves, but probably not too crazy. There's my old XJ8 just in the background there. A lovely drive down. It was really sunny earlier on. Let's just carry on through here. We wend our way between the bits of fencing. I spy R129 Mercedes-Benz just over this way. Let's see if we can see any clues on the back as to which engine this particular variant has. So it's the 320, so 3.2 litre straight six, nice smooth engine. We used to have the 280 versions of that engine in Merck Estates many years back now. A little Fergie tractor. This one looks super duper original. Like I say, I think these are entered into the next auction. But either way, I wasn't just going to walk past and not look at them. The Ferguson 35. Some useful operator instructions there, just handily penned on there. We've got a Granada Scorpio. This is the Scorpio, so top of the range Granada basically. You don't see too many of these sort of slightly jelly mouldy Ford Granadas around now, probably rarer than the early boxy Granadas. Got the Daimler DS420. So this was the sort of the final last gasp really of the running gear from the 420G, the mighty Jaguar 420G, which started out as the Mark 10. Then they put the 4.2 engine in, it became the 420G, and the chassis, or rather the underpinnings and indeed the engine from that car went in to this, the Daimler DS420. 420 because it has the 4.2 litre XK engine under its bonnet. One time very, very popular as a wedding car. Renault camper here. Make that two Renault campers. So if you're after a bit of retro camper action, you know where to come. Look at it, I didn't see this before. The Austin Ambassador, the Van den Plas edition, no less, of the Ambassador. So what was the Ambassador? Well, if we think back to the Leyland Princess of the 1970s, which despite its wedgy shape and slopey tail was actually a saloon because it only had an opening boot lid, the Ambassador righted those wrongs and introduced the full hatchback. Arguably that's what it should have been from the beginning, but maybe BL thought it would then be too close a rival to the Maxi. This, the VP there, for Van den Plas, once a proud coach builder in its own right. And in later years, that was just a name applied to upmarket cars produced by British Leyland, Austin Rover, and so on. Not too many of these ambassadors around now. Good grief. I remember these during my brochure collecting days. Yeah, very, very plush interior. Lots of velour, deep plush carpeting. Look at that. Yep, pretty plush. Top of the dash looks pretty good. A little bit just on the side there. Yep. Stereo cassette with auto eject, proper BL radio there. A nice bit of period accessories, manual box, 4-speed plus reverse. You don't see many of these around. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. Actually, even the arches don't feel all gobbed up, which is quite surprising. I'm not sure what the estimate is on that, but you know where to go if you want to find out. Yeah. What do we have here? Oh, a little BMW 2002. This is quite rare because it's the tour. I think it's the touring version, isn't it? So touring, when applied to later Beamers, like in the 1980s, referred to the estate car versions of, say, the 3 Series. But this is the touring, and this has got the lift-up hatchback. So it's the 02 series, but with the opening hatch. And that is pretty unusual, to be honest. Got the groovy little circular lamps of the early 2002s. It's been a while since I've seen one of these, actually. There's actually quite a few rarities tucked away out here. So different, the back end, compared to your regular 2002s. A very distinctive set of alloy wheels as well. Yeah, if you're after a bit of a project, something just a little bit different to the norm, well, maybe that, or even the Ambassador perhaps, would be an interesting choice. We've got an XK8 here, one of the X100s. This Armstrong Siddeley we have featured before here on the channel. This, the Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire. And there's the proud Sphinx mascot on the top of the radiator. So there was this, the Sapphire, and then the Star Sapphire came along a little bit later, which was basically a slightly updated one of these, slightly shorter grille on it compared to the Sapphire. Can't remember exactly what the estimate is on this. I think it was like 3 to 4. There's a bit of work to do there. I think the Armstrong Siddeley Club stores, the spare parts stores, is not too far away from here. It's in Shropshire somewhere, so a bit further north of here. But you know, if you need any bits and you live in this sort of locality, you probably find that you're not actually that far away from a lot of spare parts that would fit this particular car, which would aid its restoration. Right, we carry on because there's an awful lot more to see. It's an E-Class Merc there, a 124 generation, which has featured on the channel before. Pretty groovy Saab estate car there. Who misses Saab? I know I do. Got a Jaguar S-Type. Reliant Scimitar GTE, quite a vivid two-tone colour scheme, white and yellow. This one from the mid-1970s. Fiat X19, designed by Bertoni. Pretty neat set of wheels, the alley wheels there. I like these earlier Fiat badges. It's a shame they no longer fit those to modern Fiats because they're quite stylish indeed. Another one in black. Yeah, so you've got 2 Fiat X19s to choose from. Like I say, whether these are in this upcoming auction or maybe they're booked in for a future one, don't know. But the website will give you all the info on that. We've got a Porsche 944, Peugeot 406 Coupe, the Jeep Grand Cherokee. I had one of these very, very briefly. I didn't really get on with it, so that was sold on pretty rapidly. But they're quite good cars from the point of view they're pretty basic. We had, like I say, we had one of this era of Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we had one of the later WKs fitted with a 5.7 Hemi. And actually, it was a great tow car. And the parts, if you buy them from Rock Auto in the States, They're pretty cheap, they're pretty basic cars, which helps when they're getting on in years a little bit, because it makes them a lot cheaper to keep them on the road. So yeah, don't dismiss some of these American 4x4s. Talking of 4x4s, I've got a little Fiat Panda here, 4x4 on the G plate, and on the end here a Suzuki Grand Vitara. This one of the long wheelbase XL7 versions. Not many of those around now. Mrs. OCC used to run a V6 Grand Vitara just a few years ago. Right, here we are back inside the main building now, and we have another gaggle of slightly later cars which we'll just have a quick scoot through just to give you an idea in case something really stands out to you that you want to pursue and find out more about. Various Porsches here, Boxsters, several, and we keep going up here and we go slightly further back in time to the Porsche 944, and I do like these are sort of growing on me a little bit now. All the fuss and razzmatazz is around 911s, various. Of course, a model that was produced for decades, really, in various forms. And the 944s and the 928s, I wouldn't say they're forgotten, but they often get overlooked. But actually, I think these, and indeed the 968s, I was looking at 968s last week, funnily enough, I think they offer quite a lot for the money. This one with the slant nose conversion. I'm not too sure of the spec on this one, so you'll need to check that one up. Another 5 Series, I think this is a manual sport version of the E39 5 Series. I think it's a 525i. Let's have a quick look around the back just to be sure. Probably quite a desirable little car, actually. They're debadged, but I think this is a 2.5 with the manual box. Yeah, manual box. So yeah, good things. Last of the proper good looking 5 Series Beamers in my book. Big Audi there. Rolls Royce Silver Spirit. Mini, of course, we've spent quite a lot of time looking at these BMW era Minis, and actually now I've driven Harley's Mini Cooper. I have to say they're actually a fun little car. This is a Cooper S. Early Cooper S's were supercharged, later ones were turbocharged. The original Mini here, in fact a couple of those, so we'll have a look at those in just a moment. We're behind the Cooper S, which is actually quite a funky looking little car. I do like these. Very retro interior, the big speedo in the middle, just like the old Minis. The tacho right in front of the driver there. They're actually a lot of fun. We have a bit more classic camper action. We've got a splitty here from '64. A bay window a little bit later, late 1970s. Another bay alongside. The side access door is open on this one, and the pop-up top as well. Like I say, there are viewing days coming up in just a few days' time. So yeah, if there's anything that really catches your eye, come and have a look, because then you can have a proper crawl around and see exactly what you could be bidding on. Pretty groovy Mark 1 Ford Transit here, and at the end a Bedford CF, the CI Trailblazer edition no less. This Mini Cooper is actually very, very similar spec to Harley's, just a year before. His is an 08, this is an 07, but pretty much identical. The trim looks actually nice and clean in these. What you have to watch with these is sometimes you get lots of sort of water staining for some reason on the seats in many of these era of Minis. This one actually looks really clean indeed. We did look at quite a few before we chose Harley's. We've got a Mini here, a Mark II, if those big backlights are anything to go by. Bigger lights compared to the Mark I. I can see a 1967 registration plate in the car, which presumably belongs to this car. It's a Mark II, so you've still got these slidey door windows here and the outside door hinges. The Mark III Mini, which came along after, hinges will be concealed and wind-up windows will become standard fitment. Apart from on the vans and the pickups, they continued with the slidey doors and outside hinges right the way through production until, well, the beginning of the 1980s really. Little Mini here as well. Got a Mini 1000 on an S plate. Looks like it's been restored. Very sharp looking little car in silver. I like the heron sticker. That's quite a neat little thing. Bit of history here, so if you want to pause the video Let's have a look. Right, this was originally built to celebrate Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee. So, 1977. Who remembers the street parties way back then? I certainly do. Only 25 were produced in this unique silver over blue specification. I didn't realise it was this rare. So we've got a bit of history there, and this was a prize. Blimey. Tucked away in a garage in Edinburgh, stayed there for 3 years, sold in '08 with 2,500 miles. So one of only 25 examples made. Interesting bit of history on this one. I bet there are very few around of these. I seem to remember a neighbour of ours, he bought in the late 70s a brand new Hillman Avenger, which is a very similar colour to this. And I've got a feeling that was something to do with the Royal Jubilee as well in 77. If you know anything about those particular cars, have you ever heard of a Hillman Avenger edition produced in silver to celebrate the Jubilee? Well, let me know in the comments please, but I've never come across one of these little minis before. Okay, swift battery change later, and we are back to the cars. Minis various, and here a little white Fiat 500. This one on an L plate, so early 1970s, the date of this one. Very popular little cars. Originally these replaced the Topolino. Earlier cars than this were badged up as the Rover 500 for the new 500. Just under 500cc in size, the engine. Super cute, super characterful little cars these are as well. This one about 1972 I believe. Bit of open air motoring, lots of fun, room for 4 people, and as long as you're not in a hurry, a great way to get around and enter classic car shows and so on. So let's have a look. What shall we do? Right, let's go over here. So we've got a rubber bumper MGB Roadster just tucked away here. Looks like it's had paint at some point in its life, probably a little while ago now. Not sure if it is a runner or not. It's on a P registration. It's got silver and black plates have been fitted to it. Originally it would have had reflective colour plates, yellow on the back, white on the front. Manual. It all looks to be there, as far as I can tell. Next to that, a Vision in green, the Citroen Mahari. So this was based on basically on 2CV running gear, a little air-cooled engine around 600 thereabouts cc, maybe 650, that sort of ballpark. This one on the P registration, very distinctive, pretty wacky looking machine. Last trip to France we did see a few of these parked up here and there, and several of them made it into videos that I did of our drive around. Some nice bit of stickerage in the window. Pretty wild thing. Michelin. Mahari Club. There we go. Looks like a French Mahari Club. Certainly a very, very distinctive little car. It makes me think a little bit of Mini Moke, but just scaled up a little bit. You're not going to see one of those every day. Right. We've got a little Rover 200 series cabriolet. Which one is this? Let's have a quick look, see if the... hopefully it's not been debadged and it'll actually give us a bit of the info. Oh, it's been debadged. Twin pipes though, so maybe one of the perkier, sportier versions of the Rover 200 cabriolet. A VW Golf Mark III alongside, maybe this one. It's got badges on it to tell us a little bit more. It's a 5-door hatch. Ooh, oh, there we go. Golf GTI, so the Mark III version of the famous Golf GTI. Nice old VW and Audi supplier sticker in the back window. Always like to see those little things. This is quite a funky old thing. This is a Jetta. Is this a GTI? It is a GTI, yes. So the Jetta, the booted Golf. And yeah, I think the little saloon's quite a cool little car now. You don't see many proper saloons around. And this, yeah, quite a boxy example with a very defined boot on the back. And it's always kind of cool to see that. So even though the Golf is probably a little bit more practical with its hatchback, this is just a more interesting car, I think. For every Golf GTI that's around, there must be so few of these around. as you'd expect in a Golf. The interior has survived really well. What's it showing? 136 and a bit thousand miles on the clock. But you wouldn't really guess it, apart from a little bit of wear on the steering wheel, as befits the age. But really, look at the condition of the seats. That is quite a cool little car. And rectangular headlights on these, whereas the Golfs of the day had circular headlights. The Jetta had those horizontal lamps. That's quite a neat little car, I think. Beamer there. Right, let's keep going. Another SL Mercedes, an R129 Merc SL SL320. Same engine as the one outside. Beautiful dark blue with the sort of creamy leather interior. Look at that. Wonderfully appointed car. Proper wafter, with the option of lifting off this really substantial proper roof, and you get all the open top thrills if you so desire. So yeah, GT when you put the roof on, sports car-ish when you take the roof off. But yeah, and it's got a Mercedes-Benz approved alarm system. But yeah, good looking cars. I like the wheels, the AMG alloy wheels as well. So even though it's not this car and really know a great deal about these, I know a sharp looking car when I see one. Right, anyway, we return back to more traditional classics. TR6 here on an L, quite a nice shade of blue. Yeah, we see plenty of these around. There's quite a big following for TRs in this neck of the woods. Like I say, at Goreswith Hall yesterday, the TR Drivers Club were there out in force, and there are quite a few TR6s present. Really good choice. A lot of fun, make a great noise as well. MGC GT alongside this one, bright red. Got the hump in the bonnets, that's how we know it's an MGC. Slightly larger diameter wheels. Yeah, very unusual car, even though it looks just like an MGB. Very different car to drive. The handling with that big straight six engine in the front. All the suspension was completely redesigned on these to accommodate that BMC, the C series 6-cylinder engine. So a lot of work went into these. They didn't sell in huge numbers, so survivors are pretty thin on the ground now. Got a wonderful little Austin-Healeys Sprite Mark 1 here. That is quite the little charmer. I've seen a few of these for sale lately, and yeah, they certainly are a very appealing car. Real nice simple car to run. Just a little A series engine, manual box, a couple of carburetors, and not much else really. Little slidey side windows. Pretty basic car, strictly a two-seater. Nice, simple, stylish but simple interior. Little bucket seats. Yeah, that looks to be a very cheerful little car. I'm sure Mrs. OCC will be quite happy with one of those. I love how the lamps just sprout out the front there, hence the name Frog Eye or Bug Eye, as they were nicknamed in America. Yeah. What a cheerful little fellow that is. And staying with the BMC, the British Motor Corporation, we've got a soft-top version of the Morris Minor 1000 just over here. It's on the D plate. So the D suffix registration, that tells us this one was first put on the road way back in 1966, and it's survived all the way through to 2026. That's not bad going, is it? 60 years old for a car that was originally designed probably just to last 10 years, 15 years perhaps. Let's have a quick look in here. So there are quite a few mods done to these in order to convert them into the convertibles. Obviously the roof, the folding roof arrangement. Quite a few two-door saloons were converted. This is an extra bit of reinforcement that was added to the convertible cars just to sort of cut down the scuttle shake a little bit, because when you take the roof off a saloon it can affect the structural rigidity a little bit. There's also an extra bracing point here, should be spot welded on down there, and I'm not sure if this is a converted saloon or a factory built Tourer, but even if it's a conversion, as long as it's been done right, doesn't really matter, there's lots of them around. Got a wide body BMW Z3 here, happy memories of owning one of these. A few years back now we had one of these, a 2.8, and it's a lot of fun. It struck me as being like a modern day Austin-Healey. You're sat right back, just over, almost over the back wheels. A big lusty 6-cylinder engine in the front, and quite stylish. For a long time the styling of the front of these was a bit Marmite, but I think with modern cars all looking so boring now, that it's nice to have something that looks distinctive. But the side view in particular I think is really, really cool indeed. I love these sort of vents in the front wing here, that's sort of a nod back to the old 507s. And the rear view, especially on the wide body cars, I think looks pretty macho as well. So yeah, definitely future classic potential with one of those. I know Harley likes these. He keeps making noises about Z3s, especially the wide body cars. And I can well see why. Great cars, strictly a two-seater, but with that 6-cylinder engine under the... I'm assuming this is a 6-pot car. There was also the 1.9 with the 4-cylinder engine, but I'm assuming this is probably a 2.8 with a wide body. Then, yeah, a lot of fun and a great noise. Here we have a little MG. Is this the F or the TF? Not quite sure from the back. Yeah, this is the MGF, so you've got a little K-series engine tucked away. It's a mid-engine car. This was MG Rover's answer, really, to the MX-5. Nicely appointed inside, quite nice in there. The engine back here somewhere, roughly in this sort of neck of the woods, I suspect. Yep. Got quite a strong following now. Here, ooh, we've got a little MR2 Mark 1, great little wedgie coupe. Yeah, nice to see a good one of those. That's lovely looking colour as well on an F plate. Yeah, really sharp looking little cars. Again, mid-engine, so the engine behind the front seats. But yeah, I think a good one of these would be quite a characterful little car to own. Right, we continue our quest for interesting cars because there are so many things entered into the auction. Like I say, it starts this Saturday, and wow, one of the most unusual cars here today is, wow, this is the Dyna Panhard, the Panhard Dyna X, that's it, let's get it right. This one dates to 1950, and in terms of quirky French cars, they don't get much quirkier than these. Some years ago I found myself crawling around a collection of cars in the undergrowth somewhere in East Anglia, and there was a building falling down and there was a couple of these in there. That's the last time I clapped eyes on one of these in the metal. I wasn't expecting to see another one anytime soon. I was chatting to a gentleman that I know reasonably well just a few years back, and he's got a couple of these as well. Whether this is one of them, I'm not entirely sure. But pretty wild looking thing, left-hand drive, quite a small, I think only about 600 or so cc, but so distinctive, all these really groovy mouldings on the front. There, the Panhard Dyna, really odd looking little car, but I do love these weird sort of cars. Look at that, the famous Panhard name there, a name that goes way back to the early years of the 20th century. So we've got rear hinged front doors, slidey door windows. Oh, incredible thing. I love how sort of almost like spats, a semi-enclosed rear wheels on these, but we're not going to see one of these very often, so I'm going to have a good look around this one and just take it all in, because it really is a pretty bonkers little car. So let's open this here, see what we can see. All pretty simple, of course no window winder mechanisms or anything like that, so you've got very thin doors, gives you a bit of extra elbow room. There's a slidey door windows. What a mad little car, but so stylish. Look at this little dinky steering wheel, the Dyna in the centre there. Wow. Now there are some instructions there about turning the ignition switch on, etc. So maybe this is a runner, who knows, I honestly have no idea. Like I always say, these videos really are just an introduction to the cars that are entered and coming up for grabs imminently. But What an amazing, amazing little car. It reminds me a bit of our old 4CV, but with the bonkers gauge just wound up to max and beyond. It really is quite neat. Spare wheel hung off the back. Super stylish lamps set in to the rear mud guards. There's a big central one there. Look at even the shape of the number plate, which has been sort of formed. It's got the raised edges, so this is all proper. But it's designed to fit inside the spare wheel on the back panel here. What a cool thing. I've never noticed that before, but like I say, it's been a while since I last saw one of these full stop, and the ones in the barn were very, very difficult to get to. So obviously had bits of paintwork over the years, so it's no minter, but what an unusual little car. This is certainly one of the highlights of this particular sale. Not the most valuable car here by any stretch of the imagination, I imagine, but certainly one of the most distinctive. Right, let's carry on along here because I see lots more early cars just over the way there, and I've got to get round. Here we have Austin A30, so this is an AS4 generation of Austin A30, a little two-door car. Similar to the 35, but with a smaller back window, slightly smaller engine, 803 as opposed to 948 of the later cars. This is identical to a car that Mrs. OCC ran as her daily some time ago now. Last seen heading to the docks to head over to America when we sold it, which was a bit of a surprise. And fun little car, handbrake mounted down there, bolted to the inner sill. Pull-up windows, just like on the 35 and indeed the Mark 1 Austin A40s. You just grab this little thing and slide the windows up and down, so no expensive window winder mechanisms in this. So pull-up windows in this, pull backwards and forwards windows in the diner alongside. Yeah, not a bad little car. And when you're looking at A30s and 35s, you always have a look down the front panel here because they're quite prone to rotting around here. And what tends to happen is they get welded or filled or both, and there's this little moustache here. You've got this little sort of indent here in the front panel, and often when you've got some sort of slightly half-baked repair work, that gets smothered over with fillet and you lose that little detail. So if you're going to buy in a 30 or a 35, just have a look to make sure this little sort of moustache either side of the grille is still there, because that tells you that you are looking at some painted metal as opposed to who knows what. Right, let's carry on over here. Morgan. So we've got a late 60s Morgan here. Which one's this, the 4.4? Yep. Morgan 4.4. I know there are Morgan enthusiasts who watch these videos. So there we go. Quite a nice old Morgan. Got a few years on that one. And then we have the Morris and the Frog Eye alongside. So let's go round this way. We keep going round, try not to miss anything out. And we have a couple of Jaguars. We like a bit of Jaguar action. This is an XK140 fixed head coupe. So an evolution of the 120 that came out in 1948. This will probably be early to mid 1950s in date. Bit more room inside, because one of the criticisms of the original 120 was that they were a bit pokey. You were really close to the steering wheel, and you had a big point, big dome in the centre of the steering wheel. It could get a bit cosy if you are of ample proportions trying to get behind the wheel. So I think the bulkhead was all moved away just a little bit to give you a bit more interior space. That was one of the upgrades with the 140 that we're looking at here. Quite big bumpers on these as well compared to the 120 that came before. This one looks to be in very, very tidy condition. Winner of Le Mans 51 to 53. So of course Jaguars, the C-types, did super well in sports car racing in the 1950s, Le Mans in particular. Jaguar were very proud to shout about that. Look at that wonderful, wonderful interior. That is a particularly agreeable place to be. Chrome wires on this car, but yeah, the link back to the older 120 clear to see, still with the split windscreen. Different grille on these as well, so at first glance looks very much like a 120, but the more you look the more differences you see, but a very, very sleek looking car indeed. And alongside that we have the good old Jaguar Mark II. Which one is this? This is the 2.4 litre, so around about 110 brake horsepower, give or take. Some of these were manual, some were automatic. Let's have a quick look through the window. The window is down, so we're going to quick peer in. Right, so we've got manual with overdrive. There's the manual shifter, floor mounted. That's nice. Looks to be very original trim in there. Actually, just poke the camera in there just so you can get a bit of a looky around. Yeah, woodwork looks to be pretty good order. Old Radiomobile radio down the bottom there, at the bottom of the centre console. Yeah, very nice. Nice to see one on steel wheels as well. So many of them have been fitted with wire wheels, and indeed oftentimes with this sort of cutaway Coombs type rear arches. But every now and again it's nice to see one just as it came out of the Browns Lane factory. Not quite sure what the guesstimate is on this one, but yeah, nice, very tidy looking Mark II from what I can see here. And don't forget to let me know if you end up bidding on any of the cars featured here, or which cars in particular would tempt you the most if you were in a position to have a bid on something here. Perhaps this Mark II, perhaps the XK140 alongside it, or maybe you'd go for one of those later modern classics that we looked at before. Right, now we have got an MGB here. I think, is this Blaze? I'm sure someone will tell me if this is Blaze. This particular shade of orange is quite a late MGB GT rubber bumper car, 1800cc, as all the MGBs were. Bear in mind the MGB goes back to 1962 when the Roadster was launched, and this, the GT, with the higher roofline and the fixed roof and the little seats in the back, this was announced in late 65, I think, at the Earls Court Motor Show, ready for the 1966 sales season. Back then, of course, with the chrome bumpers, these rubbery bumpers, so-called, were introduced in the sort of mid-1970s, and the ride height was also raised a little bit, just as a sop to California safety regulations, I believe. Looks pretty tidy. When you're looking at one of these, you're always looking along these seams where the back wing joins the rear panel, just to make sure there's no action going on in there of the tin wormy variety, but this one looks to be good in that department. You always have a good look at the sills as well, the arches, the castle sections. They live under here, so you put your hand up the back and there's like a box section that runs around here. That is somewhere to have a look, as well as all the usual places, floors, wings, behind the headlights, all that kind of thing. But yeah, good cars, drive really nicely. What I was always impressed about, if you've been on the channel for a while, you remember we had one of the factory development Roadsters, which was a rubber bumper car as well. And I was always really impressed that even though these were built during the BL days, which was not a time known for build quality in particular, the doors always shut there. There's this sort of deck chair style seating that was standard in the 1970s, but as I was saying, the doors always shut. Really nice, firm clunk to them. Very un-BL like, I always thought. Right, anyway, we carry on. Look at this proper Poirot-mobile here. The Citroen Traction Avant, one of the original left-hand drive French-built versions. They were licensed built cars assembled over in Slough here in the UK, right-hand drive, but this is an original French left-hand drive car. And this again is one of those sort of cars that is kind of appealing to me more and more. I've never really thought much about traction avant, i.e. front-wheel drive Citroens, but the more I look at them and the more I see them in these auction reviews that I tend to do and it shows, the more kind of appealing they are. Very simply styled, but very stylish at the same time, which kind of appeals a great deal. These were produced either side of the Second World War. Not quite sure what date this particular one is, but you know where to go for all the information. Lovely Marshall lamps with the yellow bulbs in still. Automobile Club de l'Ouest badge. That's the organisation behind the Le Mans 24 hours racing. I got one of those badges many years ago when I was a teenager, and we went for a visit to France and we visited the Le Mans circuit, and I bought one of those in a shop. And when we had our little Renault 4CV, I had it proudly on the front. The only car I've ever had that badge fitted on, despite owning the badge for over 40 years now. Very stylish. Look at that beautiful, chunky, what do we call it, over the back number plate there, the light and the boot handle, the plinth on the back there. Even little things like that, just super stylish. Rightio, so we carry on our quest to feature as much as possible of this Brightwells auction, and next we have MGA Roadster. So this was the mid-50s replacement for the MGTF. First time they used the B-Series engine in one of their sports cars. Early cars were 1500, later ones the 1622 cc cars, twin carburetors. This one a beautiful red example. And I believe somewhere there is a twin cam here also for sale. A bit of a project car, but hopefully we'll get to that one a little bit later. But this is definitely one of the B-Series powered MGAs. Lovely looking car. There's not a square line on it, not a straight line on it anywhere. Just very stylish. So much more up to date compared to the TF that came before, which had its styling links very much in the pre-war years. The TF was looking pretty archaic by the mid-1950s. MG really had to pull their finger out and get a new design on the books to compete with the likes of Triumph and the TR2 and the 3s. And this is what they came up with, the MGA. And I have to say, they really are a beautiful looking car. The shape, very sort of Healey-esque almost, in the way, the shape, the front wings. I always thought the front grille looked like slightly odd on these, but overall, very stylish little car, I think. Really good looking car. Of course, the MGA will be replaced by the B, and we've got another rubber bumper B alongside it, and everything that I said about the orange example down there applies to this one as well. This one also has the stripy seat material in it, as you can see there. Yeah, good choice if you just want a fairly easy to run practical classic car. Maybe as a first classic you could do a lot worse than one of these. And they actually drive pretty well. 1800cc engine, so they've got a bit of poke as well. Some have the overdrive gearbox as well, others don't, so always check that, because if you're planning a lot of motorway work, the overdrive box will make it just a little bit easier on the ears. Now we go back to the early 1950s. The Elvis TC100 Grey Lady. So this was the sporting Elvis saloon of the era. Pepped up, it'll do about 100 apparently. Giveaway is that we're looking at the Grey Lady. We've got the wire wheels, that was standard fitment on these, as were these pretty groovy little air intakes on the top of the bonnet, which your regular Elvis TCs did not have. The rest of it looks pretty much like the TC21 that was also on sale at the time, but this very much so the pepped up version, the Grey Lady, and they're quite a cool car. I love these Lucas lamps mounted on top of these really big, strong, sturdy supports from a time when cars were still made properly and accountants didn't rule the roost. Yeah, there we go, little knock-ons there, so that's what secures the wheel. You have to hammer those on and off if you want to remove or change the wheel perhaps. Quite a stylish looking car. I think the wire wheels really do set it off actually. Proper sporting saloon of, like I say, I'm guessing early 50s, about 53, but I could be a few years out on that one. Rear hinged front doors. Let's have a quick peer inside here. Beautifully trimmed, original trim as well. Seats may have been recovered, possibly, but are in lovely condition. And in fact, yeah, the whole interior is beautiful. Do not underestimate the cost of restoring a poor interior. I like this radio, this cream radio here. That's a bit of a natty thing. I like that. But look at that big slab of timber as the dashboard. Many gauges, even more switches. We like that kind of thing. Yeah, real quality thing. And I'm sure that would keep up with modern traffic very well indeed. Yeah, the TC21 21100, the grey lady, very rare sporting variant of these early post-war Elvises. Rightio, Rover P4s, well, these get to feature on the channel pretty regularly. I do quite like these. Some are 4-cylinder, some are 6-cylinder. Real quality car, and people who own these, I get the impression they probably don't like to sell them again. They hang on to them because they really are just really great ways of getting around. Proper quality cars, Rovers, back in the day. We opened the heavy door. Usually aluminium skinned the doors. Later P4s, they did switch to steel door skin doors, which can rot out. But I'm pretty sure this age of car still has the aluminium, or maybe they'd switch by now, I don't know. Most P4s we see have the aluminium skin doors. Looks very original. It smells very original in here as well. Yeah, and if you want a classic car, comfy cruiser classic car to carry the family out for a trip out, maybe at the weekend to a classic car show, that would be a very good choice. Real quality car, and usually not great amounts of money either. A 3-piece rear screen, just like the Hillman Minx Californian. Yeah, lovely quality job. Where did it all go? Right, and talking of quality jobs from the 1950s, we've got this Daimler Conquest. Don't see too many of these around. Probably not a factory colour, I suspect. But yeah, proper comfy job. Like the Rover, kind of not forgotten, but overlooked quite often, I think you can probably say. I mean, we do see P4s quite often at shows, but these old Daimlers, not so much, but they are super comfy. I think we'll start in the rear compartment for this one, just to show you what the rear seat passengers had to enjoy during their trips. And, yeah, beautifully appointed. Daimler, always beautifully turned out cars, a little opening rear quarter windows here. You can just see those there. Really beautifully equipped. Headlining in lovely condition, and as I said before, don't underestimate the cost of restoring a car with a ropey interior. Original trim is always really nice to see. Proper clunk to the doors. Pre-selected gearbox, as all Daimlers pretty much of this era had. I think the Majestic Major had a regular auto box simply because of the power that it put out from its V8 engine, but these definitely have pre-selected boxes. And again, wonderful slab of wood, beautifully crafted interior, and we won't see the likes of this again. And if you're just after something to just give you a break from the modern day hullabaloo, the rush and the stress of modern day living, you could do a lot worse than buy something like this and just go for a cruise. Leave your phone at home, well, maybe take the phone with you just in case, but switch it off and just go for a cruise and a run out and just unwind. And behind the wheel of something like this, or indeed the P4, you would definitely relax and complete your journey more relaxed than when you started. Right, now we'll carry on over here. Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud, two-tone car. There's a car very similar colour scheme to this, often rocks up at some of the car meetings that we get to, the classic car gatherings. I'm not sure if it's this particular car, but it's certainly very similar colour scheme to this. And yeah, a lot of car for your money. Quite big cars, so you'll need a fairly hefty garage. You might have to turf out the lawnmower, but wow, look at that, proper big, hefty, lovely trimmed doors, huge sills. Yep, you'd feel like the mayor driving around in something like this, or ideally being driven. That would be the ideal scenario, I guess. Wow, beautiful. Lovely old Rolls-Royce, automatic gearbox changer on the column there. Yeah, proper British luxury, and yeah, what a view down to the Spirit of Ecstasy on the top of the radiator there. A very special experience, I am sure. Ooh, And cowering in the shadow of the mighty Rolls Royce is another Fiat 500. Now, I like this grey. That really is a nice colour. I quite like that. You see lots of red ones and a few white ones. This is a late 60s car. Yeah, lovely, lovely colour scheme on that one. And quite the gaggle of motorcycles now. I don't profess to know anything about motorcycles, so I'll just skip around, and if you know what you're looking at, you know what you're looking at. Quite a few off-roading motorcycles, scramblers or motocrossers as you call them now. The Greaves, that's a very famous British brand. Quite a novel front suspension arrangement on that one as well. I can't say I've ever noticed that before. The Greaves there again, so maybe that was a Greaves thing. Let me know in the comments. Were they unique in using that style of front fork and damper arrangement? I honestly don't know. It certainly looks to be the case. Another one there. Bit of scooter action, a Vespa. Pretty wild looking Norton there. This is a Benelli, the Italian Benelli. Again, with the drop bars looking pretty sporty. The Vespa alongside, somewhat less sporty. I like the tartan seat. The Biza, the BSA Bantam Super, yeah, so the same green as the early 125cc BSA Bantam, but here in a trials configuration. That's neat. We have a Rickman, that's another name I've heard of, Honda Super Sport, plural, AJS, and the good old Biza on the end there, the BSA, and we've got a bit of memorabilia, so it'd be rude not to have a quick look at that. I just squeeze between the handlebars. And what's this? Beaches, Jams, old enamel signs. Quite a few enamel signs are entered. So if you like to decorate your garage with proper old signs, that's a nice Singer sewing machine. Not related to Singer cars, by the way. The Daily Mail. Okay, that's a nice one. I like that. That's probably my favourite actually. And if you live in Perth, there you go. Fleet Street. Ponsonby Street. Old school traffic lights, Corona Extra, BBC Antiques Roadshow. No races at York. That's quite a nice old AA sign. A few more signs down there. That's kind of cool. I like that kind of thing. Right, we need to press on because there's still quite a bit to see. Look at this. Battery operated Formula One car, presumably from the 1970s, 20 pence a ride. Cool, what kid wouldn't want to have that in their living room? Pretty cool looking thing. I wonder if it still works. Right, we carry on now. Let's have a look. Where are we up to? So we've got a little two-stroke Saab here. So this is a long-nosed two-stroke Saab. Won't be long before the V4, the regular V4 engine, was shoehorned under the bonnet. But in '67, the Saab was still offering the two-stroke Saab 96. And this is a beautiful example in red. Very handsome car indeed. Super streamlined, very streamlined shape. In fact, just look how raked that screen is compared to so many of the cars that we look at today. Saab, aircraft manufacturer of course, and a lot of their aerodynamic principles and thinking went into the shape of the old Saab 92, which became the 93, and eventually the 96 and the V4 cars in the 1970s. The thread, the design language continued right the way through, even the 95, which had the same front as the 96, but with the estate back end. That was a pretty aerodynamic little number as well. Got another BM02. This is a regular 2002, so we saw that touring outside, which was pretty rare, and I think I'm sure this is the same colour. We've got a regular booted 2002 here. This one looks to be on BBS Ollie wheels, probably not original, maybe off a 3 Series, because the 3 Series replaced the 02. But yeah, nice quality cars. Talking of quality, well, we've got the Merc here. This is a W123 Series E class Mercedes-Benz. These were produced throughout the 70s and into the early 1980s. This one's on a Y, so early 1980s or 82, that kind of date. Always have a good look at the back arches on these. This one feels good in that regard, but they can get a bit frilly and bubbly on the back arches. But these, looked after, will soldier on forever and a day. If you're after a daily classic car, something with a bit of character to run on a daily basis, well, maybe one of these would be a good shout. Is this a manual or is it auto? I didn't check. So this has got the auto box, fuel injected engine, and that would, I'm sure, soldier on forever. It's showing 82,176 on the clock. It could be original, it could be 182, could be 382, because these things go forever. Really popular as taxis over in the Middle East, of course. But yeah, beautifully built cars. Just look after it and it'll probably see you out. Such was the solidity of Mercs from this era. Right, we've got a pretty tasty looking Alfa Spider in front of it. And I do love the old Alfa Romeo script. Such a stylish thing. This, the 2 litre, the twin cam Alfa Romeo Spider. Go in here, look at the shape, just look at the shape of that. That is a very agreeable place to sit. Yeah, very easy on the eye, that interior. Deeply hooded instrumentation, a lovely wooden steering wheel. Yeah, really very, I love those little extra gauges in the centre that are angled towards the driver as well. So, beautiful car, look at that. Yeah, oh, really, really beautifully turned out. And as I've said in videos before, always have a look at the bottom of the doors where the skin comes round. If that all looks neat and proper, then it's usually a good indication that you're looking at a good car. Proper, those Chromadora, possibly Chromadora alloy wheels. What a lovely looking thing. And the offset plates, that was an Alfa Spider thing. It looks just beautiful. A really interesting alternative to perhaps an MGB or an MGC or a TR6. And to be honest, that, the more I look at the shape of that, the more appealing it becomes. That really is a beautiful looking little car. Rightio, let's carry on. I've got a couple of Mercs here. And behind this black example, we've got this, a Datsun. This is either 240 or 260Z 2+2, so this has got the extra little seats in the back. Pretty unusual to see one of these with the original wheel trim still on it. Most of them have got big chunky wolf races or mini lights, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's nice to see. This one's coming from New South Wales, Australia. So this one's done a few miles in the boats, probably more miles in the boats than it's done on the road in recent years, I guess. But actually the bodywork looks super clean, and yeah, it's really cool to see those old trims. And look how clean it is in the arches. And you run your hand around here and there's no bog or anything. So the early signs are that is, oh yeah, 260Z. The early signs are that this is actually quite a solid example of the breed. Really stylish cars from Japan. There's a front end of the so-called long nose Saab. Earlier cars with a shorter front were called, or nicknamed, the bull nose, but this very much the long nose version. And here we have that MGA, and I believe this is the MGA twin cam, a car they didn't produce in huge numbers. They have these very distinctive knock-ons wheels. That was the twin cam thing. This one looks like it's seen some restoration work, but clearly a bit of finishing to do. I don't know how many of these they made, but we're not talking huge numbers at all. Yeah, I do love the style, the look of those wheels is very, very attractive indeed. There's the dash, very, very sporting, the lovely sprung MG steering wheel, many gauges, nice old period radio over there. Yeah, bit of a work in progress, this one. Check out the website for the estimate on this one. quite an unusual project. Very good looking. I do like these cars, the fixed head cars. Just really, really stylish. Right, we carry on. Oh, here we go. Just have a quick look at the plate on the back of here just to confirm. New South Wales. Australia's #1 Nissan garage. Yeah, Datsun 2+2. What a cracker that is. Right. We have XJS convertible. Just have a quick look in here. Auto box, of course. We have XJ Series 3 on the Kent. It's a Daimler version on the Kent alloy wheels. Just see the D for Daimler in the middle there. There. Of course, like when the green Daimler Conquest, Daimler was still an independent company, but in later years Jaguar bought them out, and Daimler was gradually watered down to becoming just a badge on an upmarket version of Jaguar's XJs, and that's the case here. A very distinctive fluted grille, as per Daimler's of old. This on a K plate. That's really, really late for a Series 3. I wonder what the story is with that. I've never seen a Series 3, Daimler or Jaguar, on such a late registration. We've got an old tax disc from 2000, slightly faded but still in the window there. This car is alarmed by air and sound installations. Strips down the side, these I think were a Daimler thing. Again, the fluted boot plinth, Daimler 66. So this is the V12, probably the original supplying dealer plates still fitted to it. Lovely dark blue. It's actually a really nice car. I do like these Kent alloy wheels as well. I think they really do look a treat. Auto box, these are all autos. No manual option in the V12 XJs. Daimler or Jaguar. Individual seats in the back. That was a Daimler thing. Let's just have a quick look in here. When I was a youth, Dad had a Series 3 XJ6 and later an XJ12, but neither of them, of course, had individual rear seats. That was a Daimler 66 thing. And yeah, what a beautiful place to ride around in. 5.3 V12 engine under the bonnet. Fuel injected, of course. One very, very handsome car. Rightio. Talking of handsome cars, we've got a pair of Austin-Healeys here. And well, don't they look just a treat? One earlyish car, one latish car, this one with the knock-on mini light wheels. So this, I think, is a fairly early Austin-Healey 3000. Let's just have a quick look at the badging just to be sure. So this is a Mark II, still with the pop-in side screens, no wind-up windows as yet. That will come along on the later Mark III. Super stylish interior. This one with factory hardtop on it as well. Pretty cool car. But if you must have wind-up windows, then the later Austin-Healey 3000 and Mark III might be the car for you, because this did have a few extra modern conveniences, including wind-up windows and indeed little seats in the back, because this got seats. It does actually have tiny little seats in the back as well, but you wouldn't be fitting many big people in there. 2+2. So this is the slightly later car. Very, very similar looking. Earlier one's been de-bumpered. This one has the factory bumpers on it. There we go. This one is up as a Mark II as well. So I'm not sure when the changeover took place between wind-up windows and not wind-up windows. But anyway, two lovely examples of the big Austin-Healey. Big straight six BMC engine tucked away under that swooping bonnet. And alongside, well, very, very different car. We're looking here at the Riley RM series. Various versions of this were produced over the years, some closed top, others open top, some with 1.5, others with 2.5 litre engines. Let's see which one this is. Well, I have a quick look at the badge. Pale blue background, so as regulars will know, that means this has got the 2.5 litre engine. And in fact, not just this one, but that one as well. This beautiful maroon RM alongside, also has the bigger of the two engine options. What a great pair of Riley RMs. Very handsome looking cars, introduced in the late 1940s. Pretty pre-war in terms of the way they're put together with the ash framing, etc. Rear hinge doors. But yeah, this was a post-war model. Let's have a quick look at this one first. Quite an interesting roof arrangement, sort of padding, got this Rexine outer finish and padding and a wire mesh behind it. So you always want to make sure the roof's good when you're looking at an RM saloon, unless you're after a project car in particular. But yeah, wonderful lines to these. The interior is a joy as well. We'll have a look in the maroon car. This one looks to be pretty original. I would say if it's been painted, it's been quite a while ago now. It's sort of mellowed down into a very usable sort of paint finish. This car alongside looks like it's been fully restored at some point and still is immaculate. So which one would you go for? The immaculate example or the one that shows a few more years in its finish? Of course, the correct answer is to buy both. Use this one on a very regular basis and use this one for special days out. That's the obvious only answer, really. But yeah, beautiful condition again. Roof in good condition. The all-important roof. Little quarter bumpers on the back. Let's have a quick peer in through the window, because I know the interiors on these are just wonderful. Look at that. No touch screens or any of that silliness, just beautifully crafted interior, wood and leather, maybe a little bit of Bakelite here and there just for good measure, perhaps in the centre of the horn there. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And look at that, through the view, through the split windscreen. What a pleasure that will be to drive. I know Dad's a big fan of these. He had a couple of these. He had a saloon and also a roadster back in the 1960s. And he often waxes lyrical about his time with Riley RMs. And these, well, either of these would be very welcome in the garage at OCC HQ. What a fine pair of Rileys. And we are back to French vehicles. We've got another left-hand drive Citroen Traction. I didn't spot this one before, actually. So over there, the black example, and over here, much brighter example in all over white. Again, this is a French built car, left-hand drive, chevrons on the outside of the grille. The Slough built cars, those chevrons were tucked away behind the vertical slats for some reason. But again, wonderful Marshall lamps as well, very, very stylish. Pretty much the same interior as the other car. So you've got two Citroen Traction Levants to choose from. Whew. Decisions. Quite a big boot, actually. I do quite like the look of that. Very practical. There was a bigger version. Is it the Big 15? I can't remember what they call them, with an extra window in here. Quite a big car. But these are just a little bit more modest in their dimensions. And if I was going to go for one of these, it would be one of these. Probably the black car over there. Now we have got a Bristol, another quality British car that you don't always hear that much about. And a bit like Saab, there's a nod to aviation in the design of this. Of course, the Bristol Aircraft Company down at Filton in Bristol. And this, I think this is a 408 from 1964. So this will have a big old V8 engine. I think it's a Chrysler unit. Up to the 40, up to and including the 406, which was somewhat before this. They still used the famous straight six Bristol engine, but in the 407 they introduced the American V8, and that continued for many, many years, and that is the engine fitted to this 64 408. And well, it feels like an aircraft cockpit. Many, many gauges, many switches, push button automatic gearbox in this, the 408. So that's quite a neat little feature, not something you see all that often, but yeah, just wonderful cars. Those sort of cars, Bristol, Alvis, Armstrong, Siddeley, quality post-war British cars that a lot of people have all but forgotten about. Just your die-hard enthusiasts keeping the flame alive for these slightly more obscure makes. Look at that, even little fins on it I'm sure those backlights are off like a Hillman Super Minx or perhaps a Sunbeam Alpine. So yeah, it's not unknown for small volume manufacturers such as Bristol to borrow a few parts from other mainstream car manufacturers. But that doesn't really decrease the desirability of a car like this. Quite a big car, big GT, certainly quite an imposing machine. Spare wheel is hidden away behind there. This panel here hinges up, and the spare wheel is tucked away behind there. How cool is that? Yeah, Bristol very much did things their own way, and just really, really interesting cars. Hopefully this one will find a good appreciative home, because it really is a quality machine. Right, next to that we go across the channel again, and we have the Renault 4. What eras of Renault 4 is this one? Not quite sure. Let's have a look around the front. It's got the later front on it, on the V plate, so the back end of the 1970s, beginning of the 1980s for this one. Introduced back in the 1960s as the rival to the Citroen 2CV. This was Renault's response. Slidey window, so whereas the 2CV windows are split and the top half flapped up, these have slidey windows, a bit like on that Panhard Dyna X that we were looking at a moment ago. This one's got a Webasto type sunroof in it as well, whatever the French equivalent is for Webasto. The Renault 4 TL got stickers for Renault Reborn, so perhaps this one has undergone quite the restoration, or certainly a lot of recommissioning work. It does look to be in very bonny condition, and the paintwork looks really nice on it actually. Really cool little car, very similar colour to our little 4CV or 750 that we used to have. Yeah, very spacious, nice big windows, hatchback, so room for sort of 4 or 5 people to push. Quite practical as well. Presumably you can put the seats down, the back seats, and that will give you quite a lot of carrying capacity as well. Let's have a quick peer inside, because why wouldn't you? Slidey windows, so again very, very skinny, thin doors. Column shift poking through the underside of the dashboard there. All pretty basic, the original rubber mats. Wipe clean, easy to clean seats, the vinyl seats there. So it's all pretty basic, but you know, I do like nice, basic, simple cars. Just less to go wrong. And, yeah, pretty cool, and in a lovely colour as well. Lots of these were white, but it's nice to see one in this very appealing shade of pale blue. And on the end of the row, staying with blue, but somewhat darker bluey grey colour, we have a Triumph 2000 Mark 1. And I do like these. Big straight 6 engine. Most of them are 2 litre, the 2000s. Some of them also had the 2.5. A few even had the 2.5 with fuel injection. RYJ973, so that's not it. Well, it may be its original plates, but I doubt it. Yeah, pretty cool car. Let's go around the other side. This, the manual gearbox version. This, the Mark 1 variant of the big Triumph saloon. And yeah, proper wafter. This was sort of Triumph's rival, I guess, to the Rover P6, the Rover 2000. But of course the Rover 2000 was only a 4-cylinder. Triumph's 2000 was a 6, this one. Automatic gearbox variant. I like the back end of these as well. I much prefer these to the later Mark II version, which had the back end more like a Triumph Stag or late Spitfire, Dolomites, that kind of shape. But these cars, which came out, it was about 65, 66, pretty handsome looking cars. Back of the roofline very similar to that of the Triumph Herald, the Vitesse. Let's have a quick look inside, because they have pretty wild looking dashboards in these. Again, quite a lot more interesting. Just carefully open the door there. Pretty wild looking design, a lot more interesting than the Mark II. So if I was going to get a big Triumph saloon, if I could find a good one, I would get one of these, because I do think the Mark 1 is just altogether more interesting in pretty much every way. The outside styling, the interior styling, the dash, the steering wheel. It just looks like a really special place to be. And of course you've got that lovely 6-cylinder engine to listen to as well. Now, one of the highlights of the sale, we've been looking at regular road and family cars, but definitely one of the highlights of this particular sale is just tucked away over here. Look at this aluminium bodied beauty here. This is a Lotus 11. This is a sports race. I'm not quite sure of the date of this, but I'm going to go with mid to late 1950s. And again, all the details will be on the website, I am sure. Actually, let me think. Yeah, 56 is the date of this particular car. And, well, that is a very, very special find indeed. I think the estimate's around 90 to 100. There are replicas around of these, but this is an original Lotus 11. Really cool, very cool looking car indeed. I remember 30 odd years ago someone told me that there was one of these in a scrapyard somewhere in Manchester, in a building covered in old tyres, hidden away under a mountain of old tyres, but I never did find where that particular yard was, if it even existed in the first place. So maybe it's just a bit of urban folklore, but this one very much does exist and is right in front of me here. What a cool little thing this is. All aluminium coachwork, hand formed, just a stupid little thing. And look, road registered as well. So you can have a proper little race car for the road if you so desired. The shape of it is very reminiscent actually of the old Jaguar D-types, which are of course of similar age. D-types mid-1950s, but the swoopy lines, the way the body just wraps around over the top of the wheels, hugging the top of the tyres, and this panel, the little sort of fin, if you like, behind the driver's head, very reminiscent of the Jaguar D-types. Wheels, the rear wheels enclosed down there, very, very wind-cheating shape. Of course, Colin Chapman was big on lightness and aerodynamics. And what a great little car. I wonder what the competition history is of this super rare survivor. That would be a real blast to drive, especially as it appears at least to be road registered. So what a hoot that would be. 90 to 100 is the estimate on that. And talking of Lotus, perhaps a little easier to live with on a regular basis, day-to-day basis, is this Lotus Elan. Is it a Sprint or is it the regular Lotus Elan? Not quite sure. The colour scheme makes me think possibly Sprint, but it doesn't say Sprint down the doors. So we'll just go with Lotus Elan for now. A super little fiberglass body car, twin cam engine, about just under 1600cc I think. The engine and these wheels. Again, these lovely centre lock wheels, just like on the MGA twin cam project car we were looking at before. We carry on our way along here. We have a VW Beetle convertible, so this is one of the real ones. Quite a few Beetles have had their roofs cut off by enterprising owners in their backyard, but they are not the real deal. This though is a proper Carman converted Beetle cabriolet. Usually the giveaway is this, the squared off tops of the door quarter lights, properly finished off, framed, etc. That's usually a sign that you're looking at a proper Carman converted Beetle. And again, you've got the framing on the top of the door glass just visible there as well, and the wind up rear side windows too. And indeed the properly manufactured and lined hood. Everything points to this being the real deal. Quite a late one with the big backlights. Good looking car, I like that. Oftentimes convertible versions of regular saloons don't always look that happy or well resolved, but these Carman converted Beetles do actually look pretty groovy, I think. Yeah, and it looks to be, from what I can see, in very, very nice condition as well. Neat. And of course a distant relative, I suppose, to the Beetle here is this air-cooled 911. This is probably from the 1980s, I would guess. It's a left-hand drive, yeah, early 80s. Left hooker, maybe came in from America. And of course the early Porsches, they were designed or based on Beetles of the day when the 356 came along. Crikey. It's got one of these proximity alarms in it, so I won't get any closer than that. But yeah, a Carrera convertible, but it doesn't want me to stick around, so I won't. This is a Triumph TR3A, back on more familiar territory here. So originally it was the TR2, then the TR3, and this, the 3A. And this sort of ultimately was replaced by the totally different TR4. Very distinctive styling on these with the big cutaway doors. So that is kind of a nod back to cars almost of the pre-war era, little sports cars. But this very much a car of the 1950s. This one looks to be really nicely turned out. Painted wires as opposed to chrome, which I prefer. The interior trim looks to be really lovely, and as befits any sporting car, lots and lots of gauges, black vinyl, leather perhaps, and yeah, just a very handsome little car. What a fun little car that would be to take out on a nice sunny day. The trip down here today was one of the nicest runs I've had, straight down the 49. The weather was just wonderful and the scenery looked spectacular. It could only have been improved by being in something like this. Wind in the hair motoring. Right, let's carry on now. We've got some later performance cars which aren't really the focus of this particular channel. Audi R8s, that kind of thing. So I'll just have a quick scoot along just so you know what's here. Some pretty hefty, pretty serious bits of kit there. And talking of serious bits of kit, or in fact not at all, is this little Reliant van, done up as a homage to the Only Fools and Horses van, the old Super Van 3 that used to appear in the TV series on the BBC many moons ago. This, a much later Reliant three-wheeler van, Staffordshire registered, done up in the livery of Trotters Independent Trading Company, New York, Bolton, Paris. Of course, they were based in Peckham originally, so yeah, just a bit of fun. I'm not quite sure what the estimate is on this, but I can't imagine it is too spectacularly high. Right, I think that is pretty much my full walk around done here today in Brightwells. So folks, I guess it's got to that time of day again where I have to try and pick a favourite car, and I think I'm going to have to cheat a little bit and come up with a favourite pre-war car and a favourite post-war car. Pre-war, well, this one is very much in the running, this little Riley 9. That really is a super looking little car, and very usable as well. So even though it's only a tiny engine, I think that would actually be quite a usable car. The little Austin 10 Litchfield is very nice indeed. They've got the Monaco here. I know Harley was quite interested in that one. And this super rare Humber 12 from 1934. Little Morris, very bonny example of a car we do come across fairly often. And this, well, just post-war, this little Standard 8. What a little cutie that is. I could definitely see one of those on the driveway one day. But I think, do I want an open top car pre-war, or do I want a closed top car? Well, I've got a closed top car already, the Buick. If I didn't, I would be very tempted with this Morris. It really is a stunning car in really lovely condition from what I can tell. But like I say, make your own mind up on that. But yeah, I think perhaps unsurprisingly I would go for this Buick. I think, was it about 10-ish, 10 to 12, something like that, the estimate on this. 6-cylinder engine. I'm sure that one would roll along very well. There'd be quite a lot of support, especially in America, for Buick's information advice, parts, that kind of thing. So it wouldn't necessarily be a nightmare to run. Obviously you need to do a bit of research. But having been around in the pre-war Buick world now for around 12 months almost now, I think I would be very tempted with this. It's right-hand drive as well. I guess that makes it a little bit more practical, but I think the overall, I mean, it wouldn't be my first choice of colour if I'm honest, but the overall lines, the shape of it really does appeal. I love the view of the front, the radiator. A 6-cylinder engine, that's always going to get a big thumbs up from me, and I think it's the interior that really swings it for me on this one. So my pre-war choice is going to be this magnificent 1920s Buick. That really just a glorious looking car. But now of course I need to try and pick a post-war car, and there are quite a few to choose from. The Citroen Traction over the back, the black one in particular, I think that's a post-war car, I could be wrong. that certainly does appeal, but there are so many cars here. That groovy little Panhard Dyna, if I was after a project, that would probably be very much on the shortlist. A real little oddball car. But you know, I think as a relatively cheap and cheerful post-war car with just something a little bit different about it, I think it would be this Hillman Minx Californian. I know Harley will groan if he ever watches this video, my youthful assistant back at OCCHQ, but I just really like the shape of these cars, and being based on the Hillman Minx, shouldn't be too hard to get most of the running parts that you need just to keep it on the road. But I just love the shape, especially the roof on these little two-door coupes. And what a wonderful dash to sit behind. So those are my two choices, but there is so much to choose from. Ask me again tomorrow, it'll probably be different all over again. But yeah, definitely a recommended runner-up spot for the beautiful Morris alongside my pre-war Buick choice. Anyway, that is it for this particular Brightwells auction video. I hope you found it of interesting, and well, there was a lot to pack into this one. Don't forget to let me know in the comments which car or cars really appeal to you. It's always nice to read your comments. Constructive comments, of course, always very welcome here on the Old Classic Car channel. But yeah, what an incredible assortment of cars. So yeah, today it's Tuesday the 5th, auction start this coming Saturday and run through till the following Wednesday, and you will get a chance to view if you so wish. So thank you once again for checking out this particular video. Comment, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, because it helps keep the channel afloat. It doesn't get any easier keeping the channel running. Right, anyway, I need to get back and get this edited up and get it out hopefully by tomorrow morning. So thank you and bye for now.